Hello class, I'm your instructor, Tarmo Ramel, and I'm coming to you live from my home office. It's actually well before January, it's in December. As I'm recording this, I'm trying to get things ready for the term, and it's past my daughter's bedtime, so I'm actually here in a dress shirt and pajama pants, and I'm doing tutorial lecture recordings. This is the life that we lead. Anyhow, this is the first tutorial of the term, and my goal in these weekly meetings outside of the lecture are to bring some technical skills to the fore so that you can take these, try them, work with them, put them into your own toolkit and skill set, things that you might want to be able to put onto a resume, a job search, any other place where you can actually indicate that you have very specific skills. And we're going to start off with a relatively fun one. They're all fun, but this one particularly. I don't know about you, but I have always enjoyed travel. Well, pre-COVID anyway. Once COVID hit and the pandemic and everything shut down, it's been a little bit, I'm going to go and hide in my home bunker and not do much. But normally I'm a big travel bug, and I like to go and explore some off the beaten path places. But we can't really do that very well during the pandemic. So I would like to introduce to you a tool that many of you have probably heard of, some of you have likely used, but some of you might not be familiar with it, at least not from an intimate sense. So I would like to bring to your attention Google Earth Pro. And it used to be that there were different versions of Google Earth, but they've now opened it up and it's Pro for everybody, and we get all the fancy features that they packaged up with this. And I don't want you to confuse it with Google Maps. Google Maps is a slightly different beast. It's two-dimensional. So if I look up Google Maps and I click on Google Maps, we can see that Google Maps is a flat environment, and we can zoom in and see details and find out, oh, there's a Domino's pizza there. These are being recorded. I don't want to give anybody sort of product placement ideas, but you know, we can play around with that and look at satellite imagery, which is not always satellite imagery. I'm just going to warn you that sometimes it's aerial digital photography, but regardless, we can see quite a bit of detail. We can go down and look at some street level views of what this environment looks like. You know, we can drop ourselves right down there on Acton Road and look around and say, oh, this is pretty neat. I can see what this place looks like. But it is two-dimensional in the fact that while buildings might look a little bit three-dimensional and there's some elements to it, the mapping is still onto a flat surface. What I'm going to do is take us back to Google Earth Pro, where the mapping is actually onto a sphere. So the mapping is as close to a physical sphere that you can sort of see in the library. You might have one at home, and you can spin it around and look at it from all different angles. Wow, it's a lot of ocean on this planet. There's Australia. It looks upside down, but not if you're Australian. But you can always take this tool here and spin around where we think north should be, and then we can sort of pan around the world and say, oh, look, we've got Greenland here. That's pretty neat. I've never been. I'm just going to zoom in there by scrolling my wheel and get down right into the fjords and sort of get a sense of what the space looks like. The nice thing is that if we hold down the Shift key and the left mouse button, we can then tilt the landscape to get a three-dimensional oblique perspective of what the landscape actually looks like. It's actually taking you and putting you in the landscape. So if you've never been to the fjords of Greenland, buckle up. You get to go and look around and see what this place looks like. And you can zoom right in and get quite a view of what the landscape looks like. It's possible to use the Alt key with your mouse to drag in and out, so closer and farther from the surface. And using control, we can sort of pan around quite nicely. Similarly, looking at sort of some simulated ocean over there, we can see where the ice is, where the cliffs are. And that's really quite great. What's really neat too is that there are sometimes little icons on the surface that we can click on to see photos that people have posted of that geotagged location. That is, photos where the coordinates of where it was taken are embedded into Google Earth Pro so that we can see what the landscape actually looked like. So Ernst Nielsen posted this image here and said, hey, look, this is really quite great. You can see icebergs floating around in this fjord. You can see the vertical cliffs. So you can really start to get to places that you may not get to on a regular sort of travel schedule or budget for that matter. So you want to explore the Canadian Arctic archipelago. Maybe you're more interested in going down to New Zealand somewhere. And you're like, well, let's go down and check out Wellington and see, you know, what's the big deal with the capital of New Zealand. And, you know, we can look at photos that people have posted to get a sense of what the place is like. Or we can get right down there and have the buildings extruded into 3 dimensions. And we can sort of feel as if we're actually tourists walking around in this environment. So some really great ways to observe a landscape and to look at locations that you might not otherwise get to. We can do very similar things that we would with Google Maps, where we can grab this little fellow here that's in orange, and if we drag them, you see all of the roads that show up blue. Those have been driven by the Google car. I'm going to find an image for you and post it right here, so take a look. Yeah, you may have seen these cars driving around. They've got all kinds of cameras on the roof. They're taking video and camera footage from all around the automobile, and as they drive the roads, they then paste it onto these environments so that we can get views that look like this. So we can actually click on these arrows and travel along the road to sort of get a sense of where things go. We can pan around and look around. We can head back out in the opposite direction. Sometimes as it renders the image, if you've got a slightly slow connection or something's delayed, you can see some of the background work that's going on there. But you can sort of follow the roads as if you were actually going out for a walk. Too bad this doesn't count towards your step count or losing actually any calories from all the things you've been eating, but it does let you see some pretty neat places. So we can click on Exit Street View. It's really quite cool. We could go to the Eiffel Tower. Anybody ever been to Paris? We can scoot all the way across and land right there at the Eiffel Tower. Just saved you, you know, $1,500 in airfare, hotel, fancy cheeses, wines, and sort of hanging out in Paris for a while. There you go. There's the Eiffel Tower, and we can sort of zoom out. We can pan around and look at this thing from all kinds of angles and say, okay, I feel like I've been here now. This is pretty good. You can actually click down here, get some views of photos that other people have posted, and have a really good sense of what this space looks like. For me, I like to use this tool when I'm going to a new location. Say I have a conference or I've got a business meeting. I like to get out there and say, where's a good place for a hotel? Where are there some interesting restaurants around? Are there some great parks? Are there places where I can go? This allows me to interact with a spatial environment in a way that I simply can't with a flat static map. And that's why Google Earth and sort of Google Maps have become so popular for people trying to book vacations, book travel, sightsee, see what's going on. What's really great is that there are a whole series of layers that you can turn on and off. Sometimes the images get really busy because it's trying to show you a ton of stuff, but there may be certain things that you're interested in seeing and some things that you're not. You may not want the buildings being shown in sort of a photorealistic mode. Maybe you do. Maybe you want them to look more grayed out. Maybe you want them to be flat. Again, maybe you don't want the photos to be showing. You can play around with the legend items here and make the image appear exactly the way you want it to appear. And as you zoom in, there are usually icons that define certain features or points of interest on the map, and you can click on them, and sometimes it will give you a photo, sometimes it'll give you a video, sometimes there'll be links to other websites, but you can actually learn a tremendous amount about geographic location simply by clicking around. So Forbidden City. Anybody ever been there? It's forbidden. But this doesn't look like the Forbidden City. Forbidden City, Chinese restaurant. Maybe they've even blocked it on Google. That's pretty funny. Let's see if we can actually find it. This looks promising. There we go. This is the real Forbidden City, not the Chinese food place in Ontario. So again, these are places that up until a certain point, people weren't able to go to very easily, but it becomes really easy to spend some time on Google Earth Pro to get a sense of what this space looks like. So these aren't the actual buildings. These have been designed to look three-dimensional and photorealistic, but then people post their photos in here and we can sort of really get a sense of what this space looks like. So again, sometimes we can't get somewhere, sometimes it's cheaper, sometimes it's more for reconnaissance or just trying to figure out what's going on. But Google Earth Pro does something really quite neat. It allows you to click on this button here and look at historical imagery of the same location. So we can see right now that it's showing an image from the 11th of December 2020, and we can go back in time and look at images. And if we look at it from the top down, and maybe if we zoom out a little bit, we can see what the site looks like through time. There's a cloudy period in time. This one's maybe not as exciting, but what if we went to Brazil and we take a look at the rainforest? Maybe we can see some of the deforestation happening. So let's it's just fun to look at. I get really excited about just looking at things going on in the world. So if we look at sort of current, and if we go back in time, we can see that the landscape has been changing. You can see that the cutting is getting more severe. We can see other locations that are changing as well. Let's take a look at this. So look at that. We have sort of scrubland. There's an old road. We've got the ocean. That's 2015. We scoot through time little by little. This is, this is 2011, 2012. Now all of a sudden in 2013, it looks like they're excavating this site. 2014, they're building a new hotel. 2015, 2016, there's a new hotel. This one's already looking like it's operational. These things growing into yet another resort. So as time goes by, these become, it's pretty, become a time capsule. So we can travel through time and look at, well, what was at this site in the past? So it's an archive of digital data as well. It's possible to also add the day-night mask on here. And right now in Mexico at this point in time, it's nighttime, so it's dark, but we can pan around and you can see where the daylight or the dawn is coming. And right now India here in daylight, and getting into the Middle East, it's just starting to become morning. So we can get a sense of time, illumination. We can go back through the past and look at imagery. But what's also really quite neat is that imagine we find a point of interest that we are quite excited about. Let's imagine this island right here. Okay, we're going to zoom right down in here and say, wow, this is a location that is of interest to me. At the bottom of the screen, it gives us the latitude, longitude, the elevation of this location. I say, okay, well, maybe this one here, the quality of the image isn't so great, but if we go to this side of the island, maybe this little secluded piece, there's something there that you're interested in. We can grab this little yellow pin and we can place the pin right where we want it. We'll have the latitude and longitude of that location recorded. We can give it a name, and we can change other attributes about this, but we can save it. And now that location ends up right here in a places list, which I can save. I can always come back to it. If I'm really excited about it, I can say, well, there's a location that I want to go and visit again and take a look at. And maybe it's something I want to track. The nice thing is that we can actually take these and right click on them and we can save the place as, and it'll save it as a KMZ file or a KML file. A KML file may be a little bit safer. The KMZ files are KML files, but they've been compressed, so they don't always open with all software packages. So save it as a .kml file and it becomes a bookmark. So let's say I take this thing and I copy it to my desktop and it has a name. I hit save. It's now there so that I can give it to somebody else and somebody else can open up that location. I'm able to go to, let's say, Tallinn, Estonia. And we're just going to fly over there. It's a relatively long flight from where we just were, but here we are in Tallinn. I'm going to turn the daylight stuff off just so that the images are a little bit clearer. The nice thing is that because we have Tarmo's secret location still stored in our places location, all I need to do is double click on there and it'll send me right back to where I was, like so. Not too bad. Look at that. It's going to take us right back to that pin that we stuck into the beach. The other nice thing is, I'm just going to move away from there for a bit. I'm going to reduce the size of this Google Earth for a moment. And notice that I've got Tarmo's secret location. That's the KML file that I saved onto my desktop. If I double click on there, it will automatically launch Google Earth Pro and it'll take me back to that location. So if you have a location that you want to share with someone, if you want to show your parents, your best friend, me, your TAs, some location on Google Earth, then you're able to save that location and share it with people, which is also really quite a handy thing to do. The other neat thing is that it's now possible to turn the view out from the Earth and look towards the cosmos, and to look at all of the mapped sort of heavenly bodies that we have out here and get information about stars and planets and things that are going on. And quite honestly, 2020 has been amazing for planet tracking. For anybody that's been outside at night, the number of planets that we've been able to see with our bare eyes is absolutely incredible. Some really interesting astronomy going on at this point in time. But we could also look at Mars. You know, you might be interested in exploring an extraterrestrial location, and we can sort of look at some pretty interesting things that are going on over here, and learn a little bit about the landscape of Mars. It's possible also to go and look at the moon and travel around the moon. And I know that a lot of people haven't been to the moon, but I don't know why my secret location is still showing up on the moon. That seems pretty funny. If I'm not mistaken, the lunar landing sites are also located here with considerably more detail, but we have all kinds of landing sites, the tracks that people actually moved and walked around or drove, depending on which mission it was. But there you go, beaches stuck together. There's the little automobile that went to the moon. It's still there. So some pretty cool stuff. Anyhow, Google Earth allows you to do these types of things, but it allows you to do even more. It allows you to create, let's say, paths of things and save those. I'm just going to save that as an untitled path, and then we can look at the elevation profile of that path. So let's say you are a runner and you go and you plot out your run. Maybe this would work better if we did it actually on Earth, because not too many of us are going to be running on the moon anytime soon. But let's go, and although maybe not all of us are in Toronto right now, let's go here to a location right here around campus, and let's imagine that we start our run and we follow this pathway here. We run across this field and we come back. Okay, so this is, call this the fake run. And if we right click on it and we show elevation profile, we can see sort of what elevations we ran at and track how far we ran. It gives us the maximum slope, the average slope, we have the distance. It keeps all of that stuff nicely mapped out for us so that we can keep track of where we were. So that's also a relatively interesting way of navigating what it is that we're doing. We can save images, we can bring images in and place them on top of things that are going on in Google Earth. We can add image overlays, we can record tours. So if you wanted to go in and sort of create a view where you show people around, you can save those things, record them, and then share them with people and say, hey, here's a really cool place that I went to. There's something interesting that I did, and we can take a look at it. There are a lot of places that actually give you pre-recorded tours and allow you to sort of find some interesting things that are going on. We can get directions to these locations, directions from those locations, and we can sort of say, oh, okay, now I've been to the Grand Canyon. And I don't know if anyone's ever been, show of hands, who's been to Grand Canyon? I'll tell you, I was like thinking, I went years and years ago, and I remember thinking, yeah, it's just a big hole in the ground. And I got there and I was just completely mesmerized by how big the scale, the scope, the depth of this thing was just mind-blowing. And as a geographer, I was already expecting it to be huge. Absolutely phenomenal place to check out and see what's going on. But it's a tool that allows you to look at locations, get a sense of what's there. It's already been georeferenced. There's links to the outside world, but I use it often for context to some of the things that I'm doing. So I want you to keep in mind Google Earth, and I want you to play around with it. There's some really fantastic places to find, to look around and sort of see what's going on. Have you ever been to Chernobyl to see where the big nuclear disaster was? Have you been to the capital city of Papua New Guinea? Have you been to the Sydney Opera House? There's a really nice tropical island in the South Pacific called One Foot Island. It's a place that you might want to check out. They're places that are hard to get to, expensive to get to, and until you have the means of getting there, you can at least live vicariously through Google Earth Pro, and while you do it, interact with a geospatial management tool and have something that is really user-friendly and something that can provide you with context to other geographic studies that you're working on. It's also really easy to add data onto this framework or to save data from here into other contexts. So as an entry tool for dealing with geographic data, Google Earth Pro is yours. Anyhow, I'll leave you with that, and we'll talk again next time.